everyone. Welcome back to No Time for Neutral. I'm your host, Georgia Hawthorne, and Andy and I are going to try to recap everything that's happened in Montana and in D.C. in the last week without making you want to put your head through a wall. So we're going to start with the fun topic of this podcast. You ready? Do you know what I'm going to say?
I bet I can guess.
The devious smile on my face doesn't give it away.
Is it Epstein?
It is.
Okay, all right, okay.
It is. So MAGA world is exploding in a way that I don't think we've really seen it explode before. And it all started because of the Epstein files. And for a little historical recap, Donald Trump campaigned on releasing the Epstein files.
Right.
This was like part of his campaign promise. And his AG a couple of months ago, Pam Bondi, she made a whole big show of the Epstein files are sitting on my desk and I can't wait to release them and all of this stuff. And last week, the Trump administration has now done a full 180 when it comes to the Epstein files because the DOJ came out and said, we're done with this. We're not releasing any more details around the Epstein case. We're not releasing the files. They don't exist, actually.
They don't?
Apparently not. Donald Trump says they don't exist.
So there is no list, even though he's been talking about it forever?
Supposedly.
Okay.
So he's gotten a lot of backlash to this decision to not release the files. And over the weekend, he came out and kind of walked it back a little bit and said, oh, well, we're going to release the grand jury testimony of Epstein's trial. I'm assuming that everyone knows who Jeffrey Epstein is, but really quick recap. Really rich guy. He pled guilty to sex crimes down in Florida in the early 2000s. And then in 2019, he had federal sex trafficking crimes brought against him. And he had an island and flight logs, and there has become an entire conspiracy around Epstein and Epstein's Island. And most of that started when he ended up dead in his New York jail cell.
Yeah.
He took this plea bargain that no one ever thought he would have got. This plea bargain kind of just came out of thin air, and then he ends up dead. And so naturally, the conspiracy theorists are like, he's not dead. They're covering for him. They're covering for the rich. And as more details come out, it feels less and less like a conspiracy. I won't lie. But we know, it's been proven that Epstein had a client list.
Yeah.
He had a little black book. He had a list of people that he was involved with. And it's also pretty for sure that Donald Trump's name was on that list. There's photos of him with Epstein. There's copies of him being on the flight logs to the island.
I've heard some doodles are out there.
Oh my goodness, yes. Okay, so
Trump is an artist?
supposedly, but only if it's in like big black Sharpie. That's how you know it's President Trump, according to Laura Loomer. So the Wall Street Journal obtained a copy of a birthday letter from Donald Trump, allegedly. We don't want to get sued. The Wall Street Journal is getting sued for this. Allegedly from Donald Trump to Jeffrey Epstein. And it contained a drawing of a naked woman, Donald Trump's signature. One of the things he wrote in the letter was, happy birthday, may every day be another wonderful secret. Which is weird.
Sus as shit.
Yeah. Who talks like that?
Yeah.
Who talks like that? And he also writes in the letter at some point that we have certain things in common, Jeffrey. Which one? That feels really personal to me. So this whole, I didn't really know the guy. I cut him off. Like, I don't know if I buy that. But also, what things do you have in common? What are those things for the guy who was going to jail for federal sex trafficking crimes? Please tell me, Mr. President, what do you have in common?
Yeah.
The people that got
did some real horrible shit to multiple young girls and got away with it because he's surrounded by money and power.
And I think that's the thing that they're forgetting about this. The reason people are upset is because people always wanted this list for justice purposes. There are lives ruined from this man and his clique. And people want justice for that. They want to see people who were involved in this be booted out of whatever powerful positions they're in, which, me too. But also, there are victims who deserve justice for the things that this man did to
Right.
them.
Yeah, I think that's one piece that's actually missing from a lot of these stories is not enough attention to how horrible Epstein person was and like why so many people are up in arms about this. The fact that he molested, sexually assaulted underage girls
Right.
without their consent.
And called in his rich buddies to help him do it.
He raped young girls. And there's women today that deserve justice because of this man and the people he surrounded himself with.
Right.
Which is why, if there is a list, people want to see it. Yeah.
Especially if the freaking president of the United States is on it.
Yeah.
That's information I'd like to know.
Yeah. So since we're talking about this, every time I watch TV or get on the internet and look at my news sources, it's the top headline and has been for over a week now.
Right.
Which is astonishing in Trump's world of like crazy news headlines.
Yeah.
All the time.
This is one media cycle he has not figured out how to flip.
This keeps holding the media's attention. And okay, so we're recording this on Monday. Today, recently, Marjorie Taylor Greene, of all people, is mad at Donald Trump over this.
That's how you know you screwed up.
If you pissed off MTG, you have screwed up. So this is what she posted on Twitter. If you tell the base of people who support you of deep state treasonous crimes, election interference, blackmail, and rich, powerful, elite, evil cabals, then you must take down every enemy of the people, Green posted on social media, referring to a series of unverified issues Trump and his supporters have pushed since the 2020 election. If not, she continued, the base will turn and there's no going back. Dangling bits of red meat no longer satisfies. They want the whole steak dinner and will accept nothing else. Quote, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Okay, I have many questions, but my main question. Are they wild dogs? Like, why are we referring to like
ravenous?
Yeah, we're like dangling meat in front of them. What is it?
She's saying the president is dangling meat, only giving like bits of fact about this case, and they want it all. They want the steak. They want this list public. And yeah, I think that...
Why this promise? I've been thinking about this for the last week while this has been in the headlines. He's broken most of his campaign promises at this point. He said he wasn't going to touch Medicaid, said he wasn't going to touch Social Security, all of these things. And those are things that have like real profound impacts on people's lives. The Epstein list is more of a conceptual kind of thing that people are upset about. Whether or not the Epstein list gets released or not does not determine whether or not you can go to the hospital and get medical care.
Yeah. I don't know.
This is the thing they're mad about.
I can't speak for the MAGA crowd. I truly can. But I think it has something to do with the story itself being just fascinating. We've been talking about it for over half a decade at this point.
Yeah.
The man was well-known, powerful, rich. When he went down, a lot of people around him also went down.
Right.
And the man was a pedophile.
Yeah.
Which is horrible. And these people want to see justice. So I think it's a lot of things.
Yeah. And I mean, the crazy part is that for once in Congress, there's something kind of happening around this. Usually the news cycle will take over and then Congress is just like, that's interesting. We don't need to do anything about that. But Congress is getting involved in this one already, and House Democrats actually tried to force a vote on the floor to release the files.
Which every single Republican
voted
against.
Including Zinke and Downing.
Yeah.
And then Ryan Zinke, for whatever reason, goes on TV and proceeds to tell everyone that there is no list, and that if there is a list, then the list doesn't really matter, and that he supports the president and he trusts the president. And one, no one asked you to say anything about this. I'm not sure why you are, but also two, why are you so dodgy?
Yeah.
You can't just be protecting the president. So what else is there to the story that forced you to come out and say something about it on TV? I'm not pointing fingers.
Zinke. Also, wasn't Pam Bondi just saying a couple weeks ago it was on her desk?
Yes.
Pam, where'd it go?
Like, that's what I mean.
Come on, Pam. Show us the list.
Show us a list.
Okay, so I figure like we could probably talk about this Epstein thing this entire episode. So
Probably.
we should probably move on.
That
What
is
is next, Georgie?
okay. So in the latest Republican antics on the state level, so big ugly bill passes.
Yeah.
We know that this includes cuts to Medicaid and changes to Medicaid. And these changes to Medicaid do not have to go, like, they do not have to be part of state law until the end of next year, December of 2026.
Right. So it's not immediate.
No, like, this is better than the alternative, because if it was immediate, there would be chaos and problems. And this gives states time to plan and, like, make sure this is going to go as smoothly as it can, right?
And have some guidance into
Right.
how.
That's the whole point of the time buffer.
Yeah.
Nope, not here. Not Gianforte's health department, because the Department of Health and Human Services is now trying to submit a waiver to the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare, which is the people who run Medicaid on the federal level. And they want to implement the cost sharing and the work requirements as enumerated in the big ugly bill. They want to implement those now. Right now.
Okay, so let me get this straight. These new regulations from the big ugly bill don't need to go into effect until next year.
Right.
However, our state Department of Health and Human Services wants to kick, what is it, 30,000 Montanans off their health insurance now. Because why?
Shits and gigs, probably. Like, I don't see another answer.
Wow. So these 30,000 Montanans could stay on their insurance through early next year and could have that time to like make a plan and get the help they need. But instead, our Department of Health and Human Services, which is supposed to be here to help Montana residents with healthcare, is ready to just kick them out the door right now.
Pretty much. So the waiver only applies to folks on Medicaid expansion. So cost sharing is where you either have a copay. So every time you go to the doctor, even though you're on Medicaid, you have some kind of out-of-pocket payment. Or they could do it in the form of premiums, where you pay some kind of a monthly payment to the state for your Medicaid coverage, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, considering Medicaid is supposed to be the health insurance when you don't have money to pay for health insurance.
Right.
But okay. And then work requirements. And we beat this drum for the last month that work requirements do nothing but kick people off coverage.
Right.
They are just paperwork hoops and not much else.
And it's been showed, I've read, in Arkansas and Georgia have tried this. We have since gone back on it because it costs so much money in administration to monitor and check that everybody is submitting this work requirement stuff in a timely manner and the right way. And it's just futile. It doesn't make sense.
Because so when DPHHS did the redetermination process in 2023, there were over 115,000 Montanans who lost coverage, who were kicked off of their Medicaid during this redetermination restructuring process.
I remember that. Yeah.
And over 2/3 of those people who lost coverage, it was for paperwork reasons.
Right.
It wasn't for eligibility.
It wasn't their fault.
It was because they forgot to sign something, or something got lost in the mail, or something along those lines. And that is what we would see if this waiver went into place. We would see 31,000 Montanans, including 4,000 kids, seniors, and people with disabilities, lose their coverage because the state thinks they need to fill out more paperwork for healthcare.
So I know a common Republican talking point about Medicaid is people on Medicaid don't work. They're lazy and just want health insurance because they can't get it. So can you tell me, Georgie, because I know that's not true.
Right.
What percentage of Montanans are working people?
First of all, Medicaid is not a handout. You do not get a check in the mail when you're on Medicaid. You just get to go to the doctor. And I want to make that very, very clear. But as for Montana, 76% of people who are on Medicaid in Montana are either working or in school. 17% of those are either too sick, too ill, or taking care of other family members who need care, which leaves about 7% of people on Medicaid who may or may not be working.
And they might have a legitimate reason, just like
Right.
all those other people.
And it's very possible that they have a job and they just haven't filled out all of the paperwork for Medicaid or something like that. But we are talking about a very, very, very small percentage
Yeah.
of Montanans on Medicaid who aren't working, which 7%, if you have 7 and 93,
Yeah.
and you're going to kick 31,000 people off of their coverage,
Yeah.
most of those people are going to be the people who are working or taking care of someone else.
Yeah. No, I feel like that really needs to be said, and more people need to know stats like that, because it's a common thing I hear all the time of people are lazy, they don't want to work, they want free health insurance. And that's just not the case.
Also, like, can we stop villainizing people for wanting to, like, be healthy?
Right.
I hate this.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to go to the doctor? How dare you?
Right.
Huh?
Healthcare is a human right.
Literally. So on that note, if that makes you upset, because it makes me upset, you can email the Department of Human Services, of Health and Human Services. We will get you a draft. We will get you the subject and the email. All of that will be in the description of this podcast. But send them an email sooner rather than later, because they are still taking public comment for this. And this is something that we can absolutely wait to do. This can wait until next year. We do not need to kick people off of their coverage sooner rather than later. It's just cruel.
So, Georgie, tell me more about these cuts on public media I'm hearing all about.
Okay, yes. We'll get there. I have points I need to make first. I have seen a lot of conversation about, well, I don't want my tax dollars going to NPR. I don't want my tax dollars going to Ukraine or whatever it is. So let's just take a step back. Why do we pay taxes? Why do we pay taxes in the first place? Because it's not just that we decided we should give part of our paycheck to people because we wanted to. That's not the point. The point of paying taxes is to have public goods. And public goods includes things like roads and parks and libraries and police and fire and things like that that we all get to use.
Right.
All of those things are there for everyone.
You can't get your potholes fixed without your neighbors paying the taxes
Right.
to fill that pothole.
Right. Otherwise, it would be up to you or one of your neighbors to take the time out of your day to go fill that pothole because no one else is going to do it for you. Or you can pay taxes to the city and the city will fill your pothole. Public media is one of these public goods. Just like everyone deserves roads to drive to work on, everyone deserves access to information too. That is also a vital part of being a citizen at this point. Also, NPR is not woke. NPR is not the woke media. Honestly, NPR is not even liberal. It is the most neutral news source we have right now. And that is because it is publicly funded. Because there are public dollars going to NPR, they have to have neutral reporting.
And I'm guessing they have a set of standards they have to use when reporting a story. They can't have a major bias one way or another. The news.
It is the news. And that is why this whole crusade against public media is so confusing to me, is because they are neutral, as they stand right now.
Right.
Neutral media outlets. But if you want to take the public funding away that keeps them neutral, they're not going to be neutral anymore.
Well, and of course they're on Donald Trump and the Republicans' enemies list because it is basic, legitimate, new, unbiased news. And Trump has made it a point since before becoming president to vilify the media except Fox News. And I mean, since then he's vilified Fox News anyway. But, like that's his basis source of biased news where, everything else, like, of course that's the villain. Of course they don't want to spend their
Facts are not subjective. You do not get to pick and choose which facts you think are true and which facts you like and which ones you don't like. That's not how they work. That's why they're called facts and not opinions. My whole point around this whole NPR thing. If you don't like NPR, great. Perfect. Don't listen to it. No one's forcing you to listen to it. I don't have a kid in school. I don't have a kid in public school. I still pay taxes to public schools. I don't drive on the roads out in northeastern Montana, at least not very often. But I still pay taxes to the state because I think they deserve roads. It's not this individual basis. You don't get to like pick and choose where your tax money goes.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of having a government.
So Georgie V's cuts on public television, NPR, it really hits home for me because growing up, my family really utilized the public goods. I grew up on a farm 5 miles north of Culbertson, north of the High Line in northeastern Montana. And we had bunny ears and got 3 channels on our TV. And the only network that had shows for, 5-year-old Andy,
Right.
PBS, Prairie Public Television. And so I grew up watching Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, Arthur, Lamb Chops, Barney the Dinosaur. I learned how to count to 10.
Yeah.
I learned my ABCs. I learned a lot of those things from ABS before I went to kindergarten. I guess I went to daycare too, but it was beneficial for me. There was nothing else there.
Right.
My folks would watch the evening news on PBS.
Yeah.
It was educational television for me.
Yeah.
One of my favorite programs on PBS was The Reading Rainbow.
Okay.
With LeVar Burton. And so, you're younger than me, probably. I've never watched it, but how The Reading Rainbow worked is it was like an hour show and LeVar would have like a list of books that he would talk about. So
Okay.
the book of the week or whatever, and he'd go into detail, read a little bit of it. And it made kids interested in reading. Like children's literacy actually went up
I believe that.
in the 80s and 90s in the United States. Kids were reading more. Reading books became like a cool thing to do. It was, I'm not kidding. And it was partially due in large part to this show because it was on public television. In the 90s, we were in a similar predicament. Congress was talking about cutting public funding. They held multiple hearings. LeVar Burton of Reading Rainbow testified in front of Congress as to why this was a bad idea. And yeah, that was in the 90s, and we're living through this again. Also, since we're on the subject, I think we should give a shout out to our late, great Congressman Williams, because he was a staunch supporter of public funding for public resources like NPR and PBS. So fought very hard for these public goods.
And the thing about public media in a state like Montana, radio, TV, those are things that you don't need cell service for. You don't need internet for those things for the most part. You can live in the most rural part of this state and get NPR and get Montana PBS and stay connected to your communities, even though you might live 20 miles out of town. And that's why it's so important in this state specifically. But so NPR, National Public Radio, has 2 branches in Montana. There's NTPR, Montana Public Radio, and YPR, which is Yellowstone Public Radio. Yellowstone Public Radio covers mostly central and eastern Montana, and Montana Public Radio does mostly western Montana. Both stations are expecting about an 11% cut to their funding from this rescissions package. Some of that funding is specifically for certain reporting. So maybe you get a grant and you can hire a student reporter for the summer to cover some niche topic that maybe you don't get to cover all of the time. So there might be gaps in reporting that we're maybe not used to seeing from those outlets. The other thing that I was not aware of until this morning is that there are also public trial radio stations. There are public radio stations that are licensed by the tribes, and there are 57 across the country, and 36 of those 57 are at risk.
Mm.
And I think it's really, really vital to Indigenous communities because not only are they generally more rural than other places in Montana, but also to have a news outlet that is accessible to everyone, that is for your community, that is by and for your own community, is so special. And to not have an outlet in the area singing the praises of your culture and your community, that's a blow.
Yeah. You mentioned that these cuts are part of a rescission package.
Yes.
Can you explain what a rescission package is specifically?
Honestly, Andy, no. Like, I know what it is, but I couldn't explain
I mean,
it to you.
it's real basic. What's crazy to me about this isn't just like putting less money in the budget for next year for these programs. This is actually the president going to Mike Johnson
Mhm.
and saying, we're going to rescind this money that you already allocated for these programs.
Gotcha.
So these cuts are money that has been allocated already to public broadcasting. Now they're like going back and
Now they're saying
no,
that
we're cutting this much. Sorry.
insane.
This doesn't happen. This is unprecedented.
I think this is kind of why I don't know what it is. It's not a bill that I've ever seen really happen, at least not since
Because this doesn't.
right. Yet another score for the Trump administration and unprecedented times. Yay! The other thing that's really special about public radio in Montana is that half of the coverage is locally produced. It's locally centered and locally produced, and that's really rare.
Hmm.
Most public radio, it literally just plays jazz. You get just jazz or just country or whatever it might be. That's not how public radio works here. You have news, you have music, you have local music, you have
Cooking shows.
cooking, events, like what's happening in your area. Like, we're not talking about music. We are talking about community connections and culture. That is what Montana is about. We are here to be here for each other and to celebrate us and the way we live and what is important to us. And we have media that does this. That's their job. And now we might not. Because Montana PBS is also facing cuts. They're looking at about a 20% cut. And these are outlets that also do emergency notification. Say a wildfire breaks out while you're camping and you have the public radio on because it's the only station you have in service. That's how you're going to find out. You're watching TV, not really paying attention. Weather alert from PBS. That's how those things work. And they're vitally important. Like, we were talking about potentially life-saving notifications from these outlets that are now going to be working with limited resources.
So, folks, we know we talk about some deep stuff. So we're going to make it a point to end our podcast on a positive note. So we are going to talk about our Montana moments. So, Georgie, what was your Montana moment since we saw each other last?
If I could show you my knee, I would, but it is very purple and kind of looks like there's a baseball attached to it.
Ouch.
And I got that in the river over the weekend. My boyfriend's little sister fell off the rock, was like trying to it wasn't too deep or anything. Like, she wasn't in danger, but like we were trying to make sure she was okay, get her out of the water, all of those things. And then my boyfriend goes down in his waders. So I'm trying to make sure he's not getting water in his waders so he doesn't drown. And then I realized that when she fell, she lost her shoe. And so I'm trying to run down the river to go get her shoe so she doesn't have to walk back across the river barefoot, right?
Mhm.
And as I'm running, down this river, or running as much as one can in a river. I just straight down, straight rock to the knee.
Ugh.
We're good. I think all is well. I don't think there's actually anything broken, but it's very bruised. But the thing I'm more mad about is that right before I did it, I had a big fish snap off. So like you could have at least given me the fish before you injured me. But we lived. It was a great time. Outside of my bruise.
But were you able to save the shoe?
No.
Oh.
No, she was long gone.
Geez, Georgie. I was hoping for something uplifting,
Hey, it's a funny story.
not painful.
You all can laugh at my expense. I won't take offense.
Cool.
What you do?
At least I'm glad to hear you're, spending your summertime and in the rivers and lakes of our great state. So for my Montana moment, I checked something off my bucket list this weekend.
Okay.
My folks were in town and I was trying to think of something fun to do.
Yours already looks happier than mine.
I promise it is. Nobody was injured for my Montana moment. Anyway, my friend Heidi has a cherry orchard up at Buckhead Lake, and she invited me up to pick some cherries.
That's awesome.
Her place is called Cherry Hill Orchard, and if you're listening, there's still cherries up there. So go to Heidi's place and get some cherries. And there's tons of other little farms and orchards up there.
You made her share me my weekend plans. I've never done that either.
It was totally fun. We just rolled up, got some buckets, filled them with cherries, weighed it, and then went on our merry way.
What are you gonna do with the cherries?
Oh, all kinds of things. So my parents took some back to Eastern Montana. We took some to Justin's aunts, and we have some here. We're going to can cherries. We're going to freeze cherries. We're going to share them with our colleagues at the office.
Cherry pie.
Yeah, and they're amazing.
That's awesome.
I have one more. So yesterday,
Okay.
we four-wheeled up to Garnet Ghost Town. Have you ever been to Garnet?
Mm-mm.
It's so
It's
cool.
on my bucket list this summer, though.
It's so cool. If you've never been to Garnet Ghost Town, there's so much amazing history about this little place up in the mountains in the middle of nowhere. We went four-wheeling up there yesterday.
So fun.
It was really fun. Yeah, we drove from Drummond up
Oh.
like under the interstate and up the mountain to Garnet Ghost Town. It was really cool. For folks listening, if you've never been to this little hole in the wall historical place in Montana, check it out. There's so much really cool history. There's people that work up there all summer that, take care of the place and give tours. And it's an incredible spot
That's awesome.
to go just spend a weekend day and learn a little Montana history about old timers that
Yeah.
frequented these parts.
That's awesome. I think you won.
I think I did too.
Now I have to do something fun this weekend so I can beat you next week.
Please do. Please do. And heal up.
Yeah. No more knee bruises.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sitting down with us, y'all. Make sure you send that email to the Department of Health and Human Services. Check back in for Gabby's episode on Friday, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening.